So if you're working as a health, fitness, or a wellness professional, it's pretty likely that at some point you'll have a client come to you that's dealing with low white blood cell counts. And white blood cells are used to kind of help the body just defend itself, and there's different types of white blood cells. Some will attack pathogens by basically engulfing or digesting them, and some will use antibodies. But this is a pretty standard test on most of your clients' blood work. So in this video, I want to help you understand some ranges that could be optimal for these numbers to lie within, reasons that they could come up low, and steps you can help these clients take to improve the situation. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
So remember, I'm not a doctor giving any type of medical advice for your clients, but I can share some studies that I found when I was researching this topic, and I'll put the links to those studies in the description below this video so you can dig into this a little bit more if you want to. Now, when we're looking at any type of low white blood cell count, it's important to understand that there are some significant health issues that can create this problem. You know, things like HIV or hepatitis or problems with bone marrow. So it's not something to just ignore. And we also want to understand that there are some medications that can make this number go lower. And there's also some types of infections that can make this number go lower. And one interesting thing is, like, if you have a certain type of infection, they might give you antibiotics to take care of that infection. And then antibiotics are on that list of the medications that can make that number go lower. So some of it might seem a little bit wacky if you're looking into this for specific clients, but the ranges that they say are optimal are between 4.5 and 11. And that might show up as like 4,500 instead of 4.5, depending on how they measured that. And when we're looking at this range that's pretty wide that they're considering normal, we want to understand that things like smoking and inflammation can really raise the white blood cell count. Those can make it go higher. And you know, we have a lot of people that are dealing with they're overweight or they're obese, and that can create a lot of inflammation and raise these numbers. So when we're looking at these numbers might be common, but that certainly doesn't mean that they're optimal. So we don't want to tell a client that these are the optimal numbers. These are just what's common, and if a client is just trying to compare themselves to the average, human, that might not be the best situation. Because a lot of these studies, like white blood cell count as a predictor of mortality, a lot of them talk about how you can pretty much look at these higher ranges of what they consider normal up here around 9 or 10 and such. And these studies are pointing out that the higher those numbers are in that what's considered normal range, the better chance the person has of dying of pretty much anything, of any cause of mortality. The higher that number is, the higher the rate that they have to die. So a lot of these studies kind of all agree, and you can kind of dig through these. So we might want to think about the fact that these rates might be a little bit higher than normal. We also want to consider the fact that smoking rates have really declined over the past decades or so. But these numbers, they came up with these numbers a long time ago, back when a lot of people smoked. So if smoking raises these numbers, it makes sense that they would see higher numbers back then when a lot more people were smoking. Not as many people think smoking is as cool as it used to, so not as many people do that. So it makes sense that these numbers may be coming down. And when we look at this study on the revision in reference ranges, they basically look at all these studies that are showing that the higher that this number goes, the more likely a person is to die. Maybe we need to bring these ranges down to around 3.1 to 8.8, somewhere in that range. So that might be a more optimal range. And when you're talking to your clients about this, you can say, look, it might even be better to just be a little bit lower than that. But if a client is coming to you saying, wow, I fell below 4.5, it's too low, something is going horribly wrong, well, just understand that the opinion now might be that even below that lower part of the range might be a little bit more optimal. Still, some people are going to have numbers that just appear too low, and when that's the case, we need to consider other things that may be bringing that down. So we hear a lot about, malnutrition or nutrient deficiencies, especially in specific minerals like copper and zinc or B12 and folate. And zinc is interesting to me because we talk in a lot of our videos how zinc is very important to help the immune system function correctly. So it makes sense to me that if zinc was low, well, the body would have a hard time producing all these things that help the immune system function correctly. And when we're looking at these type of nutrient deficiencies, it's usually a situation with the client where there's some type of digestive malfunction, where they're not breaking down their food correctly so that they can access all of those nutrients in the food. And we're seeing these situations in malnutrition. You'll see a lot of papers that talk about that. But if someone could be eating plenty of food, but if they're not digesting it correctly, then that client could still be dealing with basically malnutrition since the cells are not seeing the nutrition that's coming in. So we talk about digestion in a lot of videos. I'm not going to go into how to fix that here, but if you don't know how to do that, my book Health Pro Results, chapters 3 and 4, kind of walk you through helping clients figure out which aspects of digestion are not working correctly and steps they can take to improve those. And the book is available on Amazon, but I'll put a link in the description below so you can get that whole thing totally for free, and then you can just jump to chapters 3 and 4. And if you're a consumer that just happened upon this video because you like the topic, we'll also put a link for my book Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, and chapters 3 and 4 of that book go over those same topics, and you can get that one for free as well. But that book is just written more for consumers, where the Health Pro Results book is really written for health professionals. But we also want to think about stress and cortisol. Cortisol seems to have the ability to lower this level of white blood cells in the body. And so that means that either the client could be really stressed, they're stressed about their work, or they have some stressful relationship, or their boss is a jerk, or some kind of situation like that. But it could also just be stress in their body. Like we're talking about these nutrient deficiencies. If someone can't digest their food and get all the nutrients, a low level of resources in the body can be a real stress to the body. Maybe the body is dealing with some type of environmental stress or heavy metal toxicity, or maybe there's some type of infection and the body's going to war all day against this infection. All these things can be stress to the body that can raise these cortisol levels. You'll also see, if you research this, people talking about, oh, well, imbalances in hormones can really lower these white blood cell numbers. And when we're looking at hormone imbalances, in a lot of cases, it's just about the body raising certain hormones and stress hormones to try to get the body to function correctly when there's either malfunctions or deficiencies that are not allowing it to function correctly. So a lot of times when there's hormones that are out of balance, it's because of other problems that need to be corrected. And then as a health professional, it kind of becomes our job to become a detective and figure out what the actual underlying cause of those hormones going a whack. It's not really fair just to blame the hormones and, hey, let's shove more hormones in there. We really should be looking at what's creating the trouble in the first place. And if your clients are looking into this, they're going to see a lot of people saying things like, oh, do these steps that help the immune system function better. And you might hear people saying, well, there's enough white blood cells there, but they're not as active as they want to be. So we have to look at the white blood cell activity. And my point of view when we're looking at this has to do with, is the immune system even being triggered to go into action at all? There's some malfunctions in the body that can restrict that signal that tells the immune system, hey, it's time to come fix a problem here. And this is a pretty common mistake in the medical world. Like an example would be like a lot of times gallbladders are blamed, like, oh, this stupid gallbladder isn't working correctly. But it's really other malfunctions in the digestive system that are not signaling the gallbladder to do its job, and the gallbladder gets blamed. So I kind of wonder if this may be going on here. You'll hear about people talking about vitamin D3 and K2 and magnesium. Those are very important for the immune system. And for the immune system to function correctly, I'll put a link in the description below for a video over on our much bigger consumer channel. And we have a video on get over a cold fast. And that talks about a lecture from Dr. Mark Anderson, who talks about how calcium really needs to be at the tissue level and in the right place for the immune system to be able to be signaled. And a lot of things that we do today, like consuming too many carbohydrates or using too much vitamin D, has the ability to pull this calcium out of the tissue where it's supposed to be, and now the immune system is not even going to be signaled. It's like, nobody told me to do anything. I'm not doing anything. So it's not always a situation of the immune system is broken. It may be a situation where it's not being told to go into action. So when we look at these things and people are saying these are so important for the immune system, well, vitamin D3, K2, and magnesium are all very important players in bringing calcium in to the body, but also putting them into the system in the right place. It's part of the things that help push that calcium down to the tissue level where it needs to be. So that may be part of what's helping the immune system function correctly when you're using these type of supplements. So that other video can give you more insights into helping clients understand steps that might help that immune system being signaled a little bit better, and that may be important. People also talk about cod liver oil, and that may be a good source of vitamin A, and cod liver oil has fatty acids, and fatty acids also help push calcium back down on the tissue levels. People talk about omega-3s are very important for this, so they seem to be important, but it may not be clear as to why, and people are going to have different opinions about that. But vitamin A, I don't like to have clients supplement with a lot of vitamin A unless it's just like in a multivitamin or maybe in like cod liver oil like that, because just like vitamin D, too much vitamin A can be just as problematic as not having enough vitamin A. But this security response seems to be a big deal. And when we're looking at the body's immune response, we really need to make sure that it's able to be signaled correctly. So that may be a big part of this issue for some of the clients. And the last thing I'll mention is that I'll put a link below for a study that shows that this benzene is an ingredient in a lot of personal care products, shampoos, and all these kinds of things. And this study showed that it had the ability to lower white blood cell counts if people were exposed to it too much. And there's some other studies that kind of disagree, and the opinion is not strong in one direction about this. But if a client's unsure about what's lowering the white blood cell count, then this seems to be pretty easy just to find a shampoo that doesn't have benzene in it. They can just look at ingredients and products that they're using and say, okay, should I just get a different version of this to put one more thing in my favor while I'm trying to fix this issue? So you can see there's a lot of things that need to be kind of considered when we're looking at this. But if a client is having any digestive symptoms, that's a pretty good sign that they're probably going to be at least a little bit deficient in some of those minerals. So if you don't know how to get a grip on that, you can jump over right now and check out a video over on our consumer channel for 20 signs you're not digesting your food correctly to get more insights into what to look for there. I can't wait to hear about your results.